The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WHADenaRadio.com.
The Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch in Wadena and the Fun Zone Arcade. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Corey Tackman there, and our guy Zeke joining us today on the Morning Sports Desk, where we got a lot to talk about. Some good stuff locally, some bad stuff with the Minnesota Vikings. We'll touch on all that. First, though, Zeke, thanks for joining us here on a Monday. We got some local connections with a national hockey team. USA World Junior Hockey Team ends up doing some pretty cool things, and there's a local connection for who's helping out on the bench.
Yeah, Team USA going back-to-back with back-to-back gold medal wins, the first time they've ever done that at the World Junior level. You may have seen the game-winning assist last night. Steve William from Colorado, I believe, Wild prospect. He was the Wild's first-round pick last year. He got the assist on the overtime winner as Team USA wins 4-3. They were down 3-1, and they won 4-3 for the back-to-back gold medals. 9 Minnesotans on this team. Hampton Slakinski, former goaltender from Warroad, spent some time on the Fargo Force. He plays net for Western Michigan. But the big name is just down the road, Garrett Raboyne. He's the head coach at Augustana. Started the hockey program from scratch. They got a motion passed to build a new hockey arena, even without a team. And so they finished the arena. They brought in Garrett. He was spent 1 year recruiting, and now they're playing. He was an assistant coach for Team USA. Was there last year too. So back-to-back gold medals for Garrett Raboyne, former Detroit Lakes Laker with Team USA in the Junior National Hockey Championship.
Yeah, it's really cool. Of course, though, he's an Augustana guy, so as a Bemidji State hockey fan, I got to dislike that. But besides that, it's a beautiful barn that they built in Sioux Falls there for Augustana. Those Midco dollars are certainly helping them a lot with that new arena. And it's always good to beat Canada at their own sport. I believe that they lost so bad because they lost to Chechnya or something like that in their I think it's so bad that Trudeau's resigning. I think that's actually how bad it's getting over there for hockey.
It was not great. Yeah, Canadians are not happy with the result. They lost. USA beat them. Chechnya beat them, and
it's always good to be Canada at their own
hockey
sport,
is the U.S. now.
What even is a kilometer? I don't need to know.
I don't know.
Who needs to know? We're a country that wins hockey here. And speaking of some local connections here, we have a little bit of wrestling too. Zeke, you want to give us a little bit of an update on some stuff?
Yeah, huge wrestling tournament in La Crosse, Wisconsin. The Clash happening over the weekend. Staples Motley was there. And looking at some of these teams participating, there's teams from all over. We've got teams from Wisconsin, from Idaho, from Illinois, from Ohio. Washington State was there. Let's see who else. California is on this list. So all over the place, and Staples Motley finishing 4th at this tournament. But the only Class A school to get into that Final Four, to give you a taste on how competitive this was, St. Michael Albertville, who's a perennial state champion in their class, won it. Shakopee, who's a perennial state champion in their higher class than Staples Motley, was in 2nd place. Bettendorf, Iowa was 3rd, and Staples Motley took 4th in this huge Clash tournament over the weekend. So huge accomplishment for Staples Motley when you can put your name in the same category as St. Michael Albertville and Shakopee Wrestling. That's a huge achievement.
Yeah, especially for the goals that program has set this year. It's really cool to see them chugging along and doing the things that they're doing in that. Zeke, what else do you got for local sports? Have we tapped you out yet?
I think I'm all tapped out.
All right, tapped out. Corey, you got anything? You got anything? You all in on the local sports scene, or were you too busy getting ready for Vikings Lions?
Aubrey Morrison, Walker Hackensack Akeley, is now the all-time leading scorer at Walker Hackensack Akeley. You remember a few weeks ago we posted she eclipsed the 2,000-point milestone. She's now at 2175, and it's only January 6th, which means that number is going to shoot through the roof. We are so lucky around here to see some pretty unbelievable girls basketball.
Mm-hmm.
with individual players and teams. So want to congratulate Aubrey. Also, I saw this morning that Alexandria girls basketball in their victory over Ricori set a school record 30 steals, I think, or 30 turnovers or something like that.
They're just getting after it with some of the, like the scores they're putting up this year is unreal. And the stats that they're adding with it. Yeah. It's crazy what they're doing in Alexandria this year.
Like a 60-point victory for them. And they're just doing some crazy things. So if you want to watch good buckets in central Minnesota, go find the girls basketball team, because that's where it is.
Yeah.
I think every Alexandria girls basketball game has been like a 60-point victory. I have the schedule pulled up here. They opened it with a loss to Marshall, number one team in the state, undefeated, by the way, 5-point loss.
Yep.
They followed that up with a 116-26 victory over Sauk Rapids Rice. They beat Detroit Lakes 95-23. They beat the St. Cloud Crush 98-13. Ricori 95-33 was the final score there.
Yeah.
And could be a fun one against Fergus Falls. Fergus Falls is a top 10 team in the state. They're 8-2. They play tomorrow night in Alexandria, but this is kind of the season Alexandria has been waiting for a long time. They have some good talent in that school, state volleyball champions, and all those volleyball players also play basketball. And height, as much as it translates to volleyball, even better for you in basketball. And I don't think anyone holds or hangs with Alexandria in Class 8-3A this season. Not
until they get to Marshall in the state championship.
Exactly,
or something like that. That's going to be a fun one. By the way, swinging back to Section 5A with Walker Hackensack Akeley, they're a team that's been doing some pretty cool things this year. Again, 10-1 overall, and again with the accomplishments of Morrison, they are defending Section 5A champions. They're looking to try and get back there with that win that they got on Friday. It was a 75-43 win over Sabika. They've gotten wins over girls programs in AA like Piers. They lost a close one to Belgrade Bruton El Rosa. That's a team on the other side of Section 5A. They got moved into that section this year for girls basketball. So that's going to be an interesting one to follow. Right now, they are leading their subsection in the West half. I believe. Okay, yeah, there you go. In their section in 5A with a 54.3 QRF value. The only one close to them is Bertha Hewitt with a 51.8. But again, Walker Hackensack Akeley is going to be favored to get back into that state tournament this year for sure, at least in terms of that subsection. So a lot of good girls basketball being played. A little tease for later in the week. We have an 8AA and Park Region Conference girls basketball matchup between Monaga and Wadena Deer Creek. That's going to be fun later in the week. And of course, we got some wrestling tomorrow. We have some Staples Motley basketball on the airwaves tomorrow as well. So you can find the full broadcast schedule online at WadenaRadio.com. And now I think that's now that we've got our local sports stuff out of the way, guys.
Time to get sad. Let's get sad, boys.
Let's go. Oh my God. I can't tell you how much of from beginning to end offensively of a dud that game was. The defense actually played really well. The wheels fell off. I think all of this just translates to this was a 2022 loss where whatever, like people talk about the 2022 season. Were they frauds? Were they not? That discussion was already had. But when the Vikings lost, they would always lose big, and it felt like they would get down and they wouldn't quite know what to do, and they just couldn't quite make the necessary adjustments. And that's what yesterday felt like. You got down big against, not down big, but you just got down against the Lions, and your offense just couldn't throw the ball deep down the field. They couldn't get that deep to intermediate passing game working because Darnold didn't really have a lot of time to throw. And even when Darnold had open receivers, he was sailing. His footwork was a mess. It just top to bottom, from head coach to backup long snapper, like it just on the offensive side of the football was a mess. Special teams was a mess. Defense played well up until basically the offense just hung them out to dry every single possession. That's kind of the gist of the game. They go to play LA on Monday night, that'll be the Monday night game in Los Angeles. And then if they win, they get to go play Detroit again. We talked about how big the 1 seed was last week, but guys, I'm just going to turn it over to you. How much dread are you feeling about the Minnesota Vikings after this loss?
I'll let you go first, Mr. Tackman.
I'm really not. Now I can spin this a couple different ways.
Spin away.
Turns out in really, really big, important games on the road against really, really big, important teams, it's hard to execute. And until things just went belly up at the end of the game, that score is more lopsided than the game was, right? All game long. It was not like a super impressive showing really from anyone. Now, individually, look at like Jahmyr Gibbs' numbers. It's going to look crazy. But again, once it goes belly up, it goes belly up. Up until that point, though, this was a close football game. And I think some of this, the idea that this game kind of stalled out in weird and funny ways, there's reasons for it. And those are the reasons I just mentioned. You're on the road against a very good team, and the stakes are at the very highest that they could possibly be in a regular season game. It's okay that things get a little tight. Now, that is true. What's also true is not winning that game means from this point forward, they have to go on the road and play very good teams with even higher stakes and you have to execute. And they showed in that game that they could not execute. I would argue you hit Jefferson in the top corner of the end zone for a touchdown, and Van Ginkel picks that ball off and runs it back. We're talking about a totally different game. And I'm not saying that the Vikings win that game, because those things didn't happen. But at least if you hit Jefferson in the corner, we're talking about an entirely different football game. It is a huge bummer that they did not show up on one half of the football to play. They were unprepared. Do you kick field goals every single time in those spots? Does that change how this game goes? Does it not? I don't know. I'm not really. I don't know if second guessing any of this is the right move. But if we're doing a vibe check, that was not exactly the performance you needed to get ready for what you hope is a stretch playoff run.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the Vikings haven't been, I wouldn't say they haven't been in this situation at all this year, because they have had miraculous comebacks at points in the season. You look at the Arizona game, if they don't come back from that, 18-6 deficit, they're not even in this position to potentially take the NFC North title yesterday. You look at some other rough games. The Jacksonville game is one we like to forget about. The loss to the LA Rams back in, I don't remember when that was, 9 games ago, because that's so many consecutive games the Vikings had won. But this is really the first time that a defense has made Sam Darnold look uncomfortable, and he did not look great. You talked about if they connect with one of those touchdown passes to Justin Jefferson. I mean, red zone number. The Vikings were in the red zone pretty much the entire first half, and they're kicking field goals and they're missing field goals and they're kicking opening kickoffs out of bounds, and Sam Darnold, he didn't have much time to throw it. I think that's what Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions defense wanted to do, was to make him get uncomfortable. Don't give him time to find Jefferson, to find Addison. We saw some bad overthrows on TJ Hawkinson last night. I think the only really reliable receiver was Jalen Naylor or Aaron Jones, and those were more of the check down guys last night. I mean, the Vikings clear-cut best part of their offense is that passing game, and it just didn't happen last night because Darnold was getting beat up. Physical play from the Lions defensive backs. I saw there was another inadvertent face mask that got missed last night. The non-safety call, if you want to go back and look at
the
that.
Non-intentional grounding. There was a big third down, I believe it was in the third quarter, where TJ Hawkinson just gets his arms ripped by Anzalone. And we show the replay, and Collinsworth and Trico just don't say anything. Like, they just show it and they go to the next play. Like, it's not to blame officials, like, because that obviously isn't why they lost.
Detroit was the better team last night, 100%.
But that they certainly weren't getting any favors for the Vikings.
No, and for a team that's, I think I saw the stat that they've benefited the most from penalties all season long, did not get any of that.
Well, and here's the thing too, is everybody talked about how big of a game this was all week long. There had to have been something from the NFL to go, hey guys, let's not throw the flag every play. And this what Jefferson and Addison do, they do a great job of drawing penalties because they're good receivers. So when they get hit off their spot or they get held, you notice. But also the Lions love to play. That's how they defend Jefferson all the time. They grab. And it's not to say, like, that is what it is. Their strategy is it's a team basketball. We're going to play physical, and we're going to dare the officials to call it because we don't think in this big of a game in prime time they're going to want to call holding every single play. And that's what – and credit to them. They played – I mean, their defense was started at the pass rush, but there wasn't a ton of wide-open guys streaking around the field either.
Yeah, I think there were at least 2 defensive holding calls last night, which was weird that – away from the ball, there was one on Branch had one, and I forget who had the other one, but Vikings just couldn't capitalize on those penalties.
They turned Goff over twice, and that's not something that happens a lot. You got turnovers. Your defense stopped them a couple times on fourth down. There was I believe it was a Jonathan Bullard or Jerry Tillery tipped ball. Goff, like, your defense gave you enough stops in the first half to at least, if your offense can strike back and hold serve, like, then it's a game. This just comes from the fact it's a total no-show from the offense, and there's a lot of different ways you could diagnose that. But I think it just starts of your offensive line did a horrible job in pass protection. The Vikings love to throw the ball deep downfield, which means you need time to throw. And I think the Vikings just didn't do a good job through the game of course correcting and trying to find, okay, how do we hit the short ones, and how do we try and do that? How do we try and set up more screens? I know they did it a couple times, but they really didn't stay consistently with it. They could run the ball a little bit more than I thought they'd be able to. But again, and especially when you get down and when it feels like everything's falling, you felt like, well, we just need to hit that big play, and we're going to move. And that just never happened. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go for this loss, but
CJ, I disagree a little bit. I had a moment in that game where I thought, you know what? I actually like some of the patience the Vikings are showing here. I like those little swing passes out to Jones. I thought they stayed with the run game a little more than I was necessarily expecting them to.
No, I think that's a good thing.
That's what I'm saying. I thought they did it. It's just that for whatever Detroit was doing, what was happening on the back end, in that back third of the passing game, just wasn't. I don't know. I don't know enough about football. I don't know why that was necessarily the case. Some of it was because Darnold just wasn't hitting anybody, and I thought Darnold had time, and just was missing throws in a way that we haven't seen him miss throws all season. I also, though, thought every time all season long, when it's like, okay, this is the time. It's 3rd and 9. The Vikings have picked up 3rd and 9s all season long. And in this game, they did not, for whatever reason. I don't know if offensive line wasn't able to do their job long enough, or Darnold was holding on to the ball. There's, like you said, then in this instance, there's a million situations happening that kind of affected it. But I actually thought there was a middle stretch of this game where I was like, I actually kind of appreciate their patience, because the more you can be patient and hit those swing routes or those underneath routes or those slant routes, you're going to eventually draw somebody up, and that is eventually going to leave Jefferson or Addison on a one-on-one. And every time you got those one-on-ones, then he would get sacked. It was just kind of a weird overthrow it. I don't know. It just wasn't a perfect performance by any means. In a way that 16 games previously we hadn't seen them play.
Yeah, and Darnold looked shaky. I mean, just from the moment out, it started off like he was too amped up a little bit because he's never played in a game this big, and it felt like maybe he was just a little too juiced, and then the juice turned to like nervousness. It felt like as the game went on, or like now panic, because there was a play, I think it was that 4th and goal. I can't, like the one right before Goff threw that arm punt to Harrison Smith, where if you look, I believe it was Addison, maybe it was Naylor. Either way, it was somebody in the right-hand corner of the end zone, right at the goal line, was doing a little like, I can't remember, like the little spin route where like you go to the outside, you kind of spin.
It was Addison.
And he's breaking open. But if you look at Darnold, and again, I'm no football expert, but I've seen enough sports to know his feet and his body were all the way positioned to one half of the field, which means they cut off one half of the field to be able to try and throw to. Addison is open, and normally what Darnold does, he's got his feet set where it needs to be. He's scanning, and he sees them breaking open, and Darnold will fire a missile. Addison will catch it, touchdown. but his footwork was off. That's just weird. And it was a mental thing that also went into the physical part because he was mentally rattled. And then it felt like he got tunnel vision where it was just, where's Justin Jefferson? And he tried to throw him the football and then the ball wasn't coming out clean. And then Hawkinson had some overthrows. It's weird. And if Darnold has one more game like that, it feels like he's going to lose out on some money this offseason, but he'll get paid anyway. But this is kind of what leads into, we have all week to talk about Vikings Rams. I want to talk about just confidence level going into that game for particular areas to wrap up the podcast. But before we do, Corey, I feel inclined that we probably should talk a little bit about our wonderful sponsors at the Pizza Ranch.
Yeah, Pizza Ranch and Fun Zone Arcade in Wadena. Check out that Godzilla game, that Godzilla VR. I got to play that this weekend, and it is absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. Like the floor moves and everything. There's moments where you put that headset on, guys, and it felt like I was facing straight down in a helicopter or straight. It was the coolest thing ever. It's Mondays, half price play Mondays. All games are half price at the Fun Zone Arcade. We're just so happy to have Pizza Ranch and Fun Zone Arcade on board. After the Fun Zone, we went in, had a little Pizza Ranch dinner, and then hit up the Skittles vending machine on the way out for dessert. So we did the full thing at Pizza Ranch and Fun Zone Arcade in Wadena this weekend. New games, the Godzilla VR that we talked about. There's a carnival wheel, Over the Edge, which is like a coin pusher, alternative coin pusher, Skillful Revolution, hit a pin to drop the prize and win it. The full arcade, the full Pizza Ranch buffet waiting for your bellies. All stimuli to be stimulated at Pizza Ranch and Fun Zone Arcade in Wadena.
All right, guys.
Not a great tagline, but it is a funny one. Can you imagine that? They change all of their advertising? Your stimuli will be stimulated. It would behoove you to stimulate your stimuli.
Yeah.
I approve.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap this up here. Let's just talk a little Vikings, Rams. We don't need to break down the matchup quite yet. We have all week to do that. But I want to talk about confidence level after this. Because if the Vikings, let's say, lost 27-24, and it was a last-second field goal by Detroit, I think it'd be a tough loss. But you know what? Like, this team can run with anybody. Here we go. After the way that game looked and how Darnold and the offense looked, it certainly has got to shatter your confidence a little bit. So I just, how are we feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, just on the Vikings' overall chances to win a week from today on that Monday night wild card game? A 1 is don't even bother showing up, and a 10 is don't even bother showing up because the Vikings might as well be going right back to Ford Field.
Looking at the Vegas line here, it looks like the Vikings are going to be favored on the road, as they should be, despite LA beating them back in week number. I've got their schedule pulled up here. Week 8, October 24th, 30-20. That was the no-call face mask game, which really had, not much say at the end there. But looking at the schedule for the Rams, they've turned it on kind of since that Vikings game. They started 0-2. They beat San Francisco week 3. They lost to the Bears in week 4. They lost to the Packers in week 5, had their bye week, beat the Raiders, beat the Vikings, beat the Seahawks, beat the Patriots, blown out by the Eagles, beat the Saints, beat the Buffalo Bills 44-42, beat the Niners again. They beat the Jets. They beat the Cardinals, and then losing to Seattle late in that one. So it's an LA Rams team that's figured things out. You can talk about the Kevin O'Connell connection, won the Super Bowl with LA, and now he's facing his mentor, Sean McVay, in the playoffs. But I think everyone talks about Kevin O'Connell as this quarterback whisperer. And if the Vikings are going to show one thing in this playoff game next Monday night, it's going to be how is Kevin O'Connell going to help Sam Darnold bounce back after the debacle in Detroit last night. And I think for all of his flowers and the amazing things that KOC has done with quarterbacks, winning games with Nick Mullins, winning games with Josh Dobbs, like 2 days after trading for him, doesn't know the playbook, basically giving him the plays over the headset. I think we're going to see a very, very different Vikings team Monday night than what we saw last night in Detroit.
To use your example, CJ, you said, what if this game was 27-24? Or what if it was 38-35? Or, I mean, pick a score. I don't think going to Los Angeles is an ideal matchup, no matter the result of yesterday's game. Again, you said we don't need to talk about matchups quite yet. We don't need to do it, but it is worth mentioning that guys like Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Poopy Nakupi or whatever his name is, those are not good matchups for the Vikings. And to go on the road to LA, there's going to be some things working in the Vikings' favor. One, they're a better team than the Rams. I believe that. Two, it's freaking cold here, and Minnesota fans are going to Los Angeles. It is going to be a Minnesota heavy crowd. It might not be 50-50, but it might be 65-35. You know what? Like it's going to be a lot of Vikings fans in that stadium. I think it's going to be quite loud in favor, or not in favor of, but certainly helping Minnesota. The Vikings should win this game. They're a better team than the Rams. I really do believe. But this is not like it's, I don't know, what, 6.5? 6.5. You asked me on a scale of 1 to 10. They should win this game. But I don't think any of us are going to come back here on Tuesday after the playoff game and be surprised that they lose either, right?
No, I think that's fully
sad. Be very sad. It'll be a sad Tuesday, but I don't think we'll be surprised by it.
Right, exactly. And in 2022, I think we all felt the vibes weren't as good going to the playoffs, but the team wasn't as good. And losing to the Giants, while it was expected, is a little bit worse than losing to this Rams team, which, like Zeke mentioned, they started off 1-4, 1-5, whatever it was. And once they got because Matt Stafford wasn't healthy at the beginning of the year, neither was Cooper Kupp, neither was Puka Nacua, and they all got healthy at the Vikings game. Remember, nobody expected Nacua or Kupp to play. Thanks, Rams, for doing it at the last second, so I couldn't put Nacua in on my fantasy lineup, and I lost that week. So thanks, Sean McVay. You've made an enemy for life. Secondly,
I put him in and I won.
Never mind. Zeke is no better friend than Sean McVay. But it's a matchup where the Vikings kind of got caught off guard because it was a short week. They just lost to the Lions, which was a hard-fought game. And then the Rams, in gamesmanship, put them right in. And the Vikings were not expecting that. Now it's a little bit different. The Vikings have a full week to prepare, and they played on the Sunday night game, but the game's on Monday night, so you get still enough time in a normal week to rest up. If you're playing that game, you're probably not going to get the Saturday game. I feel like for the divisional round, if you win, you'll probably get the Sunday game to give you that extra day to rest, since they made you play on it. They're not going to make you play on a Monday night and then go play on a Saturday, likely. Although the league would do that if they feel necessary. But I think
it's also why you needed to win that freaking game, so you could get the 1 seed and the bye and get the advantage of scheduling.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, you have to go on the road to LA. And then you'd have to go. I know it's not a big jaunt to Ford Field, but after doing a big jaunt down to LA, then you have to go back up to Minnesota and get ready to go to Detroit. That's why the worst scenario would have been going to LA, winning, and having to go to like Philadelphia or something. But they avoided that situation. But for now, if they would beat Detroit, they could end up having to go to Philadelphia, which again, this is why home field advantage is important. You could potentially have to go to LA, go to Detroit, go to Philadelphia to get to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, that's super tough. Yeah. That's so unlikely. I will say all of this to say, I still think I'm at a 7. I think the Vikings are going to win. I think they're going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost, but I think they're going to win. I'm at a 7 in terms of a confidence level. And here's the thing. They lost. They blew home field advantage. We talked about it on Friday, how important it was. We're talking about it now, but that's done. Like they lost. Okay, move on. Here we go. They looked bad. Move on. Here we go. Play the Rams. Their defense is not as good as their pass rush isn't as good as Detroit will give you. It's not going to be as brutal of an environment. It felt like the noise really did factor for the Vikings on Sunday. And Sam Darnold. LA, even if it has more Rams fans than Vikings fans, is not going to be a brutal place to play. I think the Vikings do rebound and get a win, and we see what happens in the divisional round. I'm feeling confident. The loss was bad. It was awful. I'm ready to move on and focus on this Rams game, which I'm pretty confident the Vikings can win.
You
I think
learn.
so too. Yeah, but Vikings are 2.5 point favorites looking at the Vegas line here on the road. But I mean, this never happened, but a 14-win team opening the playoffs on the road in the wild card weekend. And, I tweeted something along the lines of, how Detroit would it be for them to win 14 games and have their best season ever and have to open the playoffs on the road. But at the same time, how Minnesota Vikings would it be for them to win 14 games and then open the season on the road? And something's got to give. And Detroit took advantage of it last night. And looking at the playoff schedule here, if Vikings, Rams Monday night, if the Vikings do win, which I think they will, I'll put them at 80% confidence right now, and we'll see what I hear on the radio and what I read this week to see if that shakes that. Then they'll go back to Detroit. But I think is Detroit on the road again a more favorable matchup than potentially going to Philadelphia or going to Tampa Bay?
It's hard to beat a team three
to
times.
Throw that question out.
It's hard. Tampa Bay's the obvious one, but the weather gets weird down there. It rains a lot. It can be kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot about yourself in a loss, and I'm not trying to discredit the things we learned about the Vikings in a loss. But they played 16 games and never played like that once. It would
Save the best for last.
I can't rule out that what we saw wasn't real, but I also feel fairly confident in things just kind of go weird sometimes when you're at a really good team's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Vikings are good.
Right. And by the way, remember everybody, there's so many people here who are like, well, the Vikings were frauds and they were frauds. And this loss proves that they were frauds all year long. The 2022 team was frauds because every loss they had, they got the tar beaten out of them. The Vikings' 2 losses were by a combined 10 points, 13 points before this game. So this is a good team. This is a team that deserves 14 wins. And by the way, avoids the 15-win curse. No team that's won 15 games in the regular season has won the Super Bowl. So
hey, we've done that before.
Yeah, exactly. So congratulations, Detroit. Consider yourselves first. There's one last stat, and then we'll end on this. I think if they clean up the red zone, I think things will be completely fine. Yeah. And it was the same thing in their worst game of the year before that, which was Jacksonville, which they won. The Vikings 4 times reached the red zone but didn't score a touchdown. 3 times having goal to go, but not scoring a touchdown. 2 failed 4th and goal attempts. 1 missed field goal. No other team in the NFL in the last 30 years has done all of that in the same game. That's just so unlucky. And look, you played bad in that too. But there's somebody put this out on Twitter, and I'm gonna end the show on this. The Vikings last night in the red zone gave the same vibes as Twins have the bases loaded and nobody out.
Yeah, I can.
Base loaded, nobody out. The other team is the Twins right where they want them. Vikings in the red zone. The Lions have them right where they want them. All right, well, let's get out of here before I get too sad.
Oh, real quick. Big game tonight, FCS Championship. NDSU 7.5 point favorites over Montana State. Are you guys watching NDSU tonight?
Is that a thing? Is that a game tonight?
Apparently.
I might watch.
Yeah, I will. It will be on TV tonight at my house. But we'll see how much I watch.
Go Cats!
Oh, this has been the Morning Sports Desk on a Monday, the 6th of January. See you next time.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WHA.radio.com.